All right, this is Crom Update episode 60. 60. Wow.
Oh, dang.
25. I don't know where 60 came from, but I'm really looking to the future. But
Right? Yeah, you gotta.
I'm Kurt Brugel, and I'm the one that started this whole thing. And I'm joined by David Molina, who is actually the other person that helped me start this thing, which is I'm working on a revised edition of my Crom the Barbarian comic I did back in 2018. And I had this funny
You.
idea that maybe some other guys and gals would like to come and play with Crom the Barbarian with me and do a pin up. And sure enough,
Yeah.
Mr. Molina joined in and provided this. So this is going to be a virgin cover for the release, and
Ooh.
and it's just gonna. But this episode's not about that. This episode is about Crom Anthology. So based on the success of my forthcoming revised edition of Crom Collected comic stories. I wanted to continue working with the guest artists I had, David being one of them, and collaborate in a true sense of the word, artist collaboration. So David and I are at a place where I have been holding on to this story called The Last Druid by Joseph Kelleam, which was originally published in Fantastic Stories of Imagination, October issue 1960. So I love pulps. Pulps are obviously one half of the recipe for success of comics. And so we're diving back into that. This is only a 2-page, 8.5 by 11 story. I created the columns just to help me cut up some of the text and use it in some heads up directioning for laying out this comic that David and I are going to work on. And David and I are going to spend the next, 60 minutes
Yeah.
coming up with some layouts, which then David in turn would do the pencils. I would do the inks. And then it would be in the first issue of Crom Anthology. And so this is where we're at. So David, how are you doing this morning?
Yes. I'm doing great. Doing great, Kurt.
Good.
Thank you.
When I sent you the story, you came back with this fantastic, I call it like a concept, pinup,
Yeah.
which is very, weird. To use your word, to use your descriptive words, because you also had the question, which I'm going to use the leap off, is how much weirder can we get? Because back in the 60s and even earlier, there was a constraint kind of applied, so it's very pedestrian.
Yeah.
Like it takes you right through a story, but there are little gems that I know I would like to see, used to magnify
Oh, yeah, definitely.
it. But you are on the right path when it comes to it. This is just a little sandbox to play in, and there's things that we can take out. Things we can amplify, things that we can add. But I think the biggest thing we need to just get to by the end of this episode is at least some type of like page count. And as I was saying right before we got into recording, I had originally thought, 3 pages. And then I reread the story and it was like 16 pages. And then this morning I'm writing, I'm like, can't do 16 pages. I mean, I can't put that on David, just assuming he would do 16 pages.
It could be part 1 and 2.
I mean, anything is gonna go on this. So I'm really excited. But I really want to hear your reaction to this story, and then I'll give my reaction to the story, and then we'll see if we can start hammering out some of these questions together. So take it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so on the first read, dude, it takes me a while to get down the concepts. So I have to reread and reread. which
Oh, me
I
too.
probably have to read it again because I forgot most of it. But at first, I thought Doreen was a woman, but I kept
I too.
I kept reading. I said, oh wait a minute, it's two dudes. So one's like in my head, I picture him like a muscle head. The other guy is just his well, see, it's clob hair would be like the muscle head,
Yep.
and
Yep.
like Doreen, the weasel. Well, that tells you everything right there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, kind of
Kind of
weaselly
locked
looking
in.
dude. Yeah. But no, I was thinking like you mentioned, the story has some, pedestrianness to it. But that's great for us because that allows us, that allows for creativity, I guess. Um, so we can do all sorts of stuff with it. But uh, I mean, I didn't know what to say, Kurt.
Weird.
Yeah,
What were some of the things that you were punching up on? Like, your
mm,
concept here, um, when we say weird, it's not like we've never
yeah,
seen something like this in heavy metal, which
yeah, yeah,
I just want to add to my vision for Crom Anthology is when heavy metal was experimental. That is
oh yes, yes, yes,
that is a very clean distinction between heavy metal just being purely experimental comics to it
yeah,
having more of its own pathway in being mainstream, if you will.
yeah.
Um,
Oh yes,
so
yes, that's true. Yeah,
so what was it that obviously this is a big part of the ending to the story in a
yeah,
feeling when I first saw it, the
mhm,
reveal, if you will. But
yeah.
you definitely have taken it on your own, your own vision. So why don't you give
Yeah.
us a little bit more about
Okay,
this
so
this element?
like reading the story. I mean, the woman is part of the tree, right? She is
She
carved
is
out
the
of the
tree.
tree. I mean, yeah,
I
that's
think
what I
she
got
is
from
the
it,
tree. I think she
right?
is the
Yeah,
tree. So that's
yeah,
when I
because it's
saw this,
mhm,
I was like, damn, David gets it. Like, because
yeah,
yeah, you could say, oh, well, she's like living in the tree like a dryad, so you got a
yeah,
druid
yeah,
and a dryad. You know what I mean? We could even change it
yeah,
to the
yeah,
last dryad. You know what I mean? But,
right, yeah. Oh, that'd be
um,
cool.
yeah,
So,
we can go from there. But, keep
yeah,
going.
so I was like, with the first reading, I was like, oh, okay, so I was expecting woman because it describes that there's this druid and then there's this beautiful woman, but then she's a tree, and I was kind of disappointed. But then I was like, okay, well, let me play with that concept, and it's even better. It's not a actual flesh and blood, woman. It's a tree. She's made out of this tree. So that's where I wanted to kind of go a little demented on it. So I did this, so she'd be kind of like the living tree, I guess. And the she has like a pendant, right? And that's where
The ruby.
the ruby, yeah, the rubies on her pendant. Um, but of course, I changed that to being on her forehead.
Right.
Um, and so when it's cool because one of the cool parts of the story is that when these guys they get entranced with the ruby, right, and it just in their eyes it turns huge, it gets all magnified, but they're the ones turning really small, right?
that is
Yeah,
I think the cleverest part of the story.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So
and yep.
yeah, so I thought, I mean, it speaks about some of the characters, Clobhair and the Weasel. They hear, they don't actually see, but they hear like rustling in the bushes and stuff like that. Those are like the other little dudes, right? That have tons of ore,
Yes, yes.
and all they see is
It.
like little white, almost like mouses,
Yeah,
mice
like
running
what?
around,
Yep,
scurrying
yep, yep,
about.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
so
Yeah,
I thought
it
that was
is
pretty cool.
for the amount of words laid in. In the description of telling a story. Um,
Yeah.
and this I think is one of the most powerful things about Pulp's back. I would put like around 69, turn of 70 back to the origins is especially the shorter ones. They really need to play with the words in a way that creates visual, because there's nothing for anybody to lean on. There's no MSU or MCU movies or cartoons, or there's none of that out there. It's all books, and comics are emerging out of 1938. So the two characters. Now I have a folder of these short stories that I've collected over time, which I categorically pair with like sword and sorcery. So this would be in a sword and sorcery world, much like Crom the Barbarian's world. And these would be two thieves. But you are correct. When I first read this, and I read Clabhair the Thief and Doreen the Weasel, and especially Doreen the Weasel, I was like, this is awesome. He's obviously trying to get me to think this is a woman and she's ugly. Like maybe like his girlfriend. I started thinking along those lines. But other than tagging him and no hers, you stay with that two Abbott and Costello style thieves that are blundering their way in, as all of these others have come along. But before we get into any details, how many pages do you think this story requires to be told in comic book form?
So what was the question again? Sorry.
How many pages do you think, David, we should devote to this story?
All right. Shoot. Let's see.
Just general feeling at this point.
I'd say about, I don't know. Short comics like a 6-pager or whatever, those are really nice to read. It's going to be super compact though, right?
I think if you're plugging into 6, I think that is, I'm thinking 5 to 6. But this is I think the bigger part of it, design wise, is this is left and this is right when it comes to layout. So comic books traditionally have like that first right-hand page where you are given the lead in, the capture, the splash, this is what you're about ready to experience. But obviously you've got another like 20 pages to support and back up that splash page. So I'm not too interested in, for this story, to have to punch that in. But I think one of the things I would like to see is, that top 2/3 giving us a good establishing shot with the title integrated, but the last page having the bottom 2/3 being that big reveal, which would have something to do with the tree woman, but then like all of these little people in white running around, because that I think is the toughest of the reveals, is because at the end of the story written, you have to tie it all together. You have to now realize that the mice are little people who had previously tried to steal the ruby and the woman, because that is the other thing they're going. They're arguing about who's going to get the beautiful woman. And Clabhair says, look, dude, you're not that smart. Thanks for saving me from the judge's wrath. And that's why I brought you, because I could have done this all by myself. But look, this is how it's going to go down. I'm going to kill this druid. we'll get a hold of the ruby and the girl. We'll sell the ruby and we'll split the gold, and I get the girl. So there's immediately this dominance that's taken on
Yeah.
the characters as they're moving through. But like page one, not even actually. I think it's almost like down to here. It's all descriptive of the maze. So that's like one of those things that I would like to also see get pulled in. So you got one, two. I'm just going to add 3, 4, but then it would be 5, 6. So you would get in the 2-page spread, you would get a really good establishment of the two characters emerging into the maze. Then you'd have 2 pages where there would be a design, if you will, in the panel structuring, maze-like, which, by the way, haven't seen a lot of your work, being posted on Instagram, which there's a link in the description, people, to go and check out David's Instagram and follow him, because he does some great updates and some great, what would you call your, like, when you just do those, like, you just create panels. Like it's not even like
just panels.
If you're just doing it to keep your pencil sharp and your ink flowing. So I thought, oh wow, I think this would be a challenge that David would like to pick up. Then the last 2-page spread would be that because Doreen does club hair. Then figures, I'm going to be able to now go get the girl and the ruby.
Dang weasel.
Bing. Yeah. Once again, clubbing you over the head with all these cliches and tropes and everything.
Yeah.
But I have read this story many a times over the last, I probably found this like about 6 years ago.
Man.
That I fall in love with it more and more and more because of I think that the thing it needs you to do, which is bring your imagination and your guesswork, solving a little bit of a puzzle. So
I was
go for it.
I was going back to like the first page, like kind of like introducing the story. There had one idea for that, actually. I just remembered where so it says how cold the beautiful smile, and then how warm the glowing ruby, how treacherous the garden of the last druid, right? So I was thinking like on the page 1, panel 1, how cold the beautiful smile. We can have like the smile of the woman right there, right? Not showing the tree itself, just her smile. And then the glowing ruby on the next panel. And in the middle would be the last druid, but down here would be how treacherous the garden of, right? And we can show the garden down here, a little bit of the garden, I mean,
okay, I like that idea. The thing that I would give in a calibration way, like my version, just to see if we can calibrate something, is like I said, there's this big two-thirds of the page. Now, by the way, we're dealing with a 8.5 by 11 dynamic, because the magazine, it'll be Crom Anthology will be a magazine size, so 8.5 by 11 by print. So we do want to be conscious of that, because if we go comic book size, then we're going to have all that white space on the side. But the idea was, for me, in the introduction, was that exactly like that type kind of written, up in the clouds, sky kind of thing. But then there would be this, because it says, let's see, silent. I say Clobhair and Clobhair the thief and Doreen the weasel came silently down Gallows Hill into the glade of the dark trees. Behind them, the sun was low, and as they descend along the worn road, they waded knee deep in shadows. So for me, that panel. Oh, and then I add the second little paragraph. The twilight deepened, and Doreen grew more and more afraid. Finally, he stopped. Clobhair, let's turn back. So that was going to be all. Those two paragraphs would be what I would have used on my own to design the
intro,
the top 2/3 like that. But just having heard your take on it, I lean towards you, David, on this because you have a very strong graphic quality. I have a very strong, if I will say so myself, literal quality. So I think my work in general does rely very much on something, descriptive in order to bring it along. And as you've shown in your Instagram with your just freestyling panels out, whether they're one at a time or you just lace them together and everything, there's no way anybody could stop themselves to start going, well, that's a bizarre story, but it's not a story. It's just graphically put together. I would only say this is that if your page one is agreeable to both of us, then obviously we're going to have to stay close to that type of structure, which is symbolic graphically, not having any kind of literal sense to it. So there's two other things that I wanted to add as restrictions. I don't want any narrative boxes describing, no descriptions. Okay. So obviously we have enough in the way of description to give us, what would be in panel or page it and so on and so forth. I want to use sound effects, and I would like to use their dialogue as immature as it is. So those are only two things, because the sound effects part is just something I have been playing with my own work, and I've been noticing more and more in others' work where, graphically you could have a panel and then there could be a sound effect to help move that panel obviously into the next panel for that kind of thing. So and it's only to be because there's things like when it comes to sound effects like scurry and squeaking, within the hedges, talking to the possible mice in the hedges. And then here was one where it says, a wind with whispering and sighing amount of green black leaves and little half seen things squeaking and scurrying away from their feet. Like I said, I could take that literally, you as well, but I think it has way more breakup graphically, but with some sound effects. So the squealing and even using the word scampering,
because we'd have to for those scenes we would those panels we'd have to show less, right? Because we don't want to give up in the story, right?
Yes.
So that reveal is like towards the end.
So do you have a vision for the last page, the ending? Was it close to this, or was this just strictly a let me doodle this thing that's got me?
So the reveal, right, where we see like the little mice guys or whatever. I keep saying mice, they're just really tiny dudes.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't have because what I would have to do is while I'm reading it, start paneling it, and when I start doing that, then it gets the gears going, and so what I have to do is sit down and actually start paneling it, so I can have something to say and something to show But I mean, after I read the second time, that's the concept that came out, with the woman. But I did feel like I needed to add more trees around or whatever. It's a garden, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And stones. Yeah. I mean,
so yeah, yeah,
you've got the stones, but the hedges are the 8 foot high
mm,
hedges are what keeps
yeah,
everything confined, because there's 7 rings or layers that
yeah.
they have to kind of keep moving through labyrinth wise to get to the center where the last druid is.
Yeah, I was thinking about the hedges. I was thinking about them being like stone with greenery on it. But then these guys slash through the hedges. So what are they
Yes.
gonna do? Use hammers? It can't
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
stone. I mean,
Yeah.
as much as I love drawing stone, yeah, it would have to be like hedges if they'd be slashing through it.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it still can give there can still be an element of design where it's a variation between using
yeah,
stones and vegetation hedges,
yeah.
to
Oh yeah, that's
keep,
right.
you know what I mean, like it we don't have to live with, we don't have to, like, I was thinking, like, you've got like, hedges where, even where
Mhm.
there's like, you could see, you could get on the ground, right? And you could see
Yeah,
through, but there's nothing stopping us from, putting in, you know, stones every so, further along. And there could even
yeah,
be a design on there. So
yeah. I mean,
we could start having some sort of like occultism to the
oh,
druid. I mean, druid is
oh
a
yeah,
heavy-handed word because you're talking Celtic, right?
yes.
So and Middle Ages, and all this kind of stuff. When it comes to
Yeah.
sword and sorcery, um,
Let me
that's
ask you
just
this
a
quick.
heavy hand. Yeah.
So I don't know if it was clear in the story or not, but does is the druid like hoping for these people to come in so he can have have these little minions around, or because if so,
I
yeah.
don't think the druid is human. I think
Ah,
this is uh, a setup. It's a trap, if you will, like a
yeah.
cosmic trap.
Okay, okay, yes. So if
So
it's a
I don't
trap,
even.
then
Yep.
so sorry, Kurt. So if
No,
it's a
go for it.
trap, then we can have it where it's stone hedges with greenery on it, but
Right.
there's of course entrances into the labyrinth to get deeper and deeper, and
Yeah.
that there can be like openings, right? And there's still
Yep.
greenery on there, but they have to find
Yes.
openings and cut through them, right?
Yes. 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 So
Okay, okay, cool.
it was primarily built in stone, and then
Hmm.
hedged vegetation comes and cloaks it.
Ah, cool. Okay, yeah,
And
yeah,
even if we wanted to bring, because I think one of the um, you know the woman is of equal value, if not greater value, than the ruby. Like, these two
mm,
guys want the woman. So
yeah,
I almost get to a point that the whole thing is set up around her as a
yeah,
goddess. And her trap
mm,
is, oh, you just have to get past this old man. And they think
yeah,
they're all being like, because the druid says, "Why do you come here?" The old man asked. "Why do you
yeah,
trouble me with, within my 7 gates?" And then Doreen
yeah.
frowned. "Master, we have come to seek the truth." Then Clabert laughed. "Yes, we seek a woman with snow white skin and a ruby as large as
How
a man's
brazen.
fist. Two truths, old man, a beautiful woman and the price of a kingdom. What other truths are there?" So, like, that I think is, the set is very important for either being, at the end of 4, or being predominantly, like, I'm even going to put in here page 5. for lose. But that's where they're obviously at fault, because they're completely consumed with the idea of possession of women and money, that
Yeah.
type of thing.
It's
And
funny
then,
that they tell him straight up
yeah,
why they're
well,
there.
they're not gonna kill him. I mean, Clabear's like, I'm the one that can do it. I could snap. Because he says to Doreen, or asks, have you ever snapped the neck of a man?
Yeah.
Neck of a man. So that's where it comes down to. And then the old man looked down at Doreen with deep contempt in his eyes. This is after Doreen, goes and kneels and starts chanting, "You are the oldest of the old. You have wisdom left over from the garden, and I have come to you to seek that which only the night bird knows." The old man looked down at Doreen with deep contempt on his lined face, which I underlined. I think this is a reflection of the woman's dissatisfaction with these guys. Suddenly he
Mm-hmm.
raised a bony hand to strike, but while the last druid's last druid's back was turned, Clabert took a quick step and seized him in his two big hands and snapped his neck. So that's there's basically three parts to the story in my assessment. You got part two, which I just reviewed. Part one was the getting in and through the maze, and then I think I break it here for part three. So the just jumping back to finish off the let's say the stone hedge slash vegetation. I had made a suggestion of doing occult symbols, which would be partially
like
covered
runes and
by
stuff.
something to get people to think or feel at least that this is this is like an easy treasure hunt. How about that?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's just one of those stupid Dungeons and Dragons mazes. All they got to do is just go and kill this old magic man, which probably is going to do what, and then there's just this big tree. But then he,
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So part one, like you were saying, part one ends where, and where does part two stand? So part one is like.
So if you go down to then the druid barred their way at the last leafy entrance. He was a thin old man with a long white beard, and he wore nothing but a tattered robe. So that would be, right here at end of page 2.
Okay.
So in let's say symbolically, graphically, there's enough in here to plot us along, for X amount of panels. The only thing I'd also like to, I did this twice, but it's actually it would be in the first part on the 2 pages. But this third paragraph is Clabher took, and I'm reading from this. Clabher took him by the shoulder, that being Weasel, with one big hand and shook him as though he were a child. No one's there but a weak old man and a beautiful woman. Think of it, Doreen, a beautiful woman, stark naked except for a ruby pendant about her throat, a ruby as big as your fist, a woman with snow white skin, more beautiful than the mist women who dance by the lake. The ruby and the woman belong to the old man, to the old man. Now, I ask you, should such things be? Then Dory, okay, so I had this one, I had just in my thoughts and notes here, broken up into a sequence of 3 panels, because then it would be, let's say big hands and stuff. It would be this kind of animatedness of really leading the reader into Clobhair being the one that's most definitely going to, champion this whole story. Like he would be definitely the one that would bulldoze his way through. But total suggestion, because it was, once again, it's my literal approach, because I just don't want there to be two pictures or a picture side by side of Clobhair and Doreen. Like, and it's, these are the two characters. I really do like the idea of having it be more graphically revealing of these two, two, and we're not having to hold on to the text in descriptiveness, so we don't have to even have, Doreen does not have to be a man, just could be a very, very ugly woman. Okay? So, and then in shots, there could be some, obviously narrower shoulders, wider hips, maybe breasts, or, something to give the inclination that, these aren't two men. This is a man that's big, but then there's this weasel-like person that is unidentifiable in gender.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I mean, like I said, I thought Doreen was a woman from the beginning anyway.
I did too. I did too.
And I mean, we can do that way.
And then I break to part 3. The beginning of part 3 would be near the bonfire was a beech tree with small twisted limbs. So that would begin. So this would be the 2-page spread that had would hold the dominant graphic elements of let's say the goddess. You see what I mean? So now all of the graphic symboling, panel to paneling, is going to be leading to this reveal, which, like I said, this has a great kind of last panel feeling, though I would, not cover her up, posterior, but, having heavier shadows because light, is falling all around and everything, because then in this darker area down here would be these small white guys, glowing white figures, scampering around trying to figure out where they are, who they are, how they got there, and as a damnation for invading her garden. All right, David, what I'm thinking at this point, and I just want to close this out because I think we're over 40 minutes, and we like to keep these things bite-sized so people can get back to reading comics, making them if they do. The first question I did, are you good with the 6-page, 3 double-page layout for okay? So that's the biggest thing I really wanted to accomplish. Like I said, I want to reiterate that as much as I feel this is a strong way of approaching it, it is on you based on, you've got a pencil, but we're going to do some really sketchy work. But, I think the thing I'm now very excited about is potentially what comes back in the way of your stylistic approach, graphically, panel to panel sequential storytelling that I rarely see out there. So I want to just reiterate that my input at this point, and when we stop this recording, I want you to only feel like you need to come back with very sketchy layouts. Now, I have to ask you a question because I don't think I've ever seen you do anything like sketchy layout other than the layout of this concept.
Yeah.
So, I
Huge.
have you have a tendency of wanting to keep pushing what it is that you're working on, which I think is great because really all you did was just make a printout of the pencils and then you blacklined it. But I don't want you to get into this because I want
Yes.
that to be I want that to be as free forming for me, obviously, as the inker to
Yes.
the
No. Yeah.
project.
Thank you.
But
Yeah.
I would also like to get this in front of Jake Jacobs, who I do
Okay.
Turbo Pit Fighter with, and the three of us can sit down and we can get an art directional critique from Jake, which
Yeah.
I've gotten in the past for my
Awesome.
my 4 Crom stories. So does that work
Okay.
for you?
Yeah. That works perfectly.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean,
do you?
yeah. It's just, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was to say like, so obviously this isn't the initial sketch. The initial
No.
sketch is just a bunch of convoluted things, right?
Yep.
This is light
Yeah.
boxed, and then a light box the inks too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, you'll definitely see all my sketchy stuff with the paneling of the story.
Sweet.
But I just I just hope it makes sense. But
I don't know how it's not. I think the thing you need to trust in me is what I will bounce back to you.
okay.
If it is a question. Now, the only reason I would bounce back to you a question about how you're plotting this out, let's say sketchy pencil wise layouts and everything, is only to either basically like refine and amplify, the sketch, the what we feel as we just went 40 minutes discussing the story as a whole. So I think that's always the tougher part of making a comic book story is that when somebody enters the story, that at the end of it, they feel like they had a wholeness in what they participated in. And then therefore, I believe that that's a very successful thing. Cool art and cool story and text and sound effects and blah, 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 blah. Whether it was inked or colored or da, 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 da. I think that's all contributing elements. I think really what we've been able to establish at this point is something that'll give us something to stand on, and then we can kick back and forth on it. Whether Jake is in on the next time we get together, we'll be up for grabs on what you have for the next for the layouts and everything, because we're on a low stress progression here. This is we're not trying to rush out a project or make make the readership happy, which right now, if you're listening, if you made it this far, you are a part of the readership. So we're hoping you will anticipate what it is that comes along. But other than that, I just want to give you the sense of freedom and support to deliver on that. And then what you do have, I will, I'll take and I'll have some notes bouncing back to you, and then we'll know where to go from there.
Okay.
All right. Good. So as an update to everybody, as I said, I reached out to 5 guest artists. David was one of them. He supplied a pinup, which will also be a virgin cover to my revised edition of Crom the Barbarian Collected. I have just the cover to finish, so I'm still working on the cover. But more importantly, I'm illustrating a prose story that I converted an old 1952 pulp story by Gardner F. Fox, who is the creator of Crom the Barbarian, with John Junta, and 36 spot illustrations. So just yesterday and then today, I have started working on sketching my spot illustrations, which will be a little less than 5 by 5 inches on an 8.5 by 11. So these will shrink down pretty well, but they will be. Great, Kurt. Yeah, thank you. So, awesome. So I still have some time to do some stuff for Crom in the Charlock War, the Warlock of Sharador, which will really bring the wholeness together of my sandbox that is the public domain character, Crom the Barbarian. So with that being said, I don't want to keep anybody held up to get back to reading comics, making if they do. But I have to also thank you, David. I really do enjoy these times we get together, and I am super excited to be able to work on this project with you. So thank you.
Yeah, man, stoked as well. I thank you for bringing me on for the project. I mean, it's going to be awesome.
Good.
Thanks, Kurt.
Good. You're welcome. And that is it for everybody. Have a great time out there. Share in the comments, like, subscribe.